Coffee and Cream on Hail Varsity Radio with Andrew Rogers and Damon Benning.
Anybody else here? Big Red reflection? Are we going to see a Go Big Red reflection, DB? That's what I heard Mitch Holtz say. I think that's what he said. He was acknowledging the fact that, you know, Nebraska football's on the up and up there in that call.
Is that what he was talking about?
I believe so. It's Coffee and Cream in the morning.
Big Red. Go Big Red. You think it was?
Sorry,
is that what he was talking about?
I thought so.
There was a packed
some silly stuff
weekend. Yeah, lot of man. And I have to be careful, man, because you know
you don't know where to start.
No, I was a little guy. You know, I played. You know, in the backcourt, I was not a guy that got a lot of points in the paint unless I was trying to get to the basket because I couldn't shoot. But man, I'm having to kind of simmer down because I do want to go hard in the paint today, but I'm going to cut some folks for some slack because they know not what they do.
Oh, I think they do know what they do. I almost texted you last night and said, man. Are we going to get into officiating talk again?
Which is fine. I mean,
know.
888-638-4876. You know, the most disappointing thing is when media gets involved in it. Stop fueling the nonsense. Just stop. And I'm telling you, sure as I'm sitting here, I'm here for it all morning. Don't like, you can add us. That's cool. I'd love to respond, but call us. Let's talk about it, because the amount of crying and whining and being so choosy about what's what is maddening. It is absolutely maddening. So if you have a hot take, make sure it is well
put together.
Because the
DB train's coming.
I'm just in the mood to chew you up and spit you out. But it started like, and listen, I'm here for it. I could be wrong. I doubt it, but I could be wrong.
No.
And here's the other thing. You know what it started with? All weekend, people trying to tell fans how to be fans. I'm like, what are we talking about? Don't do this. You should do this.
They've been saying that for weeks now.
Bro, I don't understand. And I think you know me, and I don't know who got me on this. Maybe it was Severe. Maybe it was Sharp. Maybe it was somebody in my former life. It was like, hey, listen, we shouldn't be in the business of telling people how to be fans, right? As long as you're not causing bodily harm to somebody or threatening those around you in terms of imminent danger, do your thing. Right? Like, it's you want a competitive edge. You're there supporting because you want to help your team try to win games to the best of your knowledge without having the opportunity to contribute. I'm not trying to rob you of that. Like, so these people, man, I just shake my head. I just shake.
You know
my
me,
head.
I like to play lighter fluid more times than not.
Yeah.
And I was at a Chiefs Super Bowl watch party last night. And right when I don't know
how you do that.
Right when I got over there. Fly, Eagles, fly. Fly, Eagles, fly, walking through the door.
Listen, I wanted to. So I told you I was torn. I thought the Chiefs would win, but I would love nothing more than to see Hurts get a Super Bowl because I wanted to validate what I thought when he was drafted in the second round. I'm like, this guy could be.
He doesn't need a Super Bowl to be validated.
He could be a good NFL quarterback. So I
heard today on Max J. Will. Was it Max?
Whatever it is.
It's Keyshawn, J. Will, and Max. I got there. I heard today that they pulled Jalen Hurts as a top 3 quarterback in the league. In the league.
Recency bias.
Right, but he doesn't need a Super Bowl to make your case.
Oh, I hope.
What I'm saying. I mean, he's turning heads.
So I felt good about
at
that.
A national level.
My only real reservation is my heart in Pennsylvania resides with Pittsburgh and not Philadelphia. So
Kenny Pickett, top 5 quarterback for you?
I had to like reconcile that in my head. Would it bug me if in the Keystone State Philly was the representative? Not really, because when it's not the Steelers, I really didn't care. right? So, but I'm just telling you, like the whole weekend, and this is where I had to like really calm down. I spent a ton of time by myself this weekend. Like
So did I.
like literally a ton of time by myself. And I was like, you know what?
I was places. You were places.
Why do I
but
yeah.
you were by yourself.
Yeah. Even when I was watching it's just by myself. I watch Miller North's girls basketball team. I don't think anybody was within 6 feet of me.
Yeah, how was senior night?
Senior night was okay. I need to ask the powers that be why they do that in between games and not just let the girls do the girls thing and the boys do the boys thing. Like that's I mean, maybe they want like
unfortunately
the student section, but
that's what I was going to say. Unfortunately, I think there's more traffic in the later game. So they want to give the recognition when most are there. I think that's the mindset.
Even if sometimes it's just
if it
not super okay. I mean, okay, I won't die on that hill. But I found myself wanting to just like have sit downs. I just want to just like talk to people. Right? Like I saw this on Twitter, so I was like, "Hey, if this is what you're going to tweet out to feel good, why do you tweet stuff like this? Is this you?" Or like, "Hey, this is what you want people to do." Like where does that come from and what like I want to know how it's just me, right? I just want to know how people think. And not that I'm absolved of responsibility, but you can always ask me why I think what I think because I'm very accessible. Right? Like you could hit us up, you can tweet at me or whatever. Like I'm super accessible and I'm probably going to entertain it. So I want to do that with other people because sometimes 265 trillion characters on Twitter doesn't do it. Sometimes you just want a good old fashioned talk to. But that was a very strange. Wow, is this what we're coming to in the sports world kind of weekend?
I'll tell you what, though, in regards to Super Bowl Sunday, that was one of the better football games that I've seen in a long time.
Game.
Plus, it exceeded your expectation when it came to scoring. You did not think they were going to touch 70.
I didn't think it was going over 51.
And they went 3 touchdowns over that.
And it's just like bang, bang, bang. But
and that was not even a credit to poor defense. That was just moving the football.
There
were some breakdowns.
Really good pitch and catch. Real good play design.
And talk about play design. Let's talk about this for a second. Andy Reid in the second half. I mean, he did such a great job of scheming guys. The touchdown to Tony and the touchdown to Moore, were things of absolute beauty.
How about Sky Moore's resolve? Remember when he was Kansas City's whipping boy about 3/4 of the way through the season? And it all changed with a punt return for Sky Moore. The guy that couldn't catch punts and people were kind of scratching their head a little bit. Oh, Sky Moore.
He gave me, and this is not like a head-to-head example, but he gave me DeAndre Swift vibes of year one. Swift had a bunch of plays in his first year in Detroit where he dropped touchdown passes, and people were like, this guy was touted for catching footballs out of college. Why can't he do it now? He'll be better in year 2. He'll put his head down, he'll go into the lab, and he'll figure himself out because there's going to be a lot of transition in regards to that wide receiving group, and they're going to need him to step up.
So I just like just a ton of good play designs. And, you know, if you've never tried to stop or defense Philly's run game with like true triple threats and when you can pull with an uncovered center and there's just so many little intricacies where I was like, yeah, this is a handful. I mean, A.J. Brown getting a chance to work one-on-one. The very first big play of the game, that didn't have anything to do with design. That was simply, I think my guy's better than your guy. I'm going to give my guy a chance to go make a play.
In double coverage.
And that big monster went and made a play, right? So I thought the game was fantastic. And again, listen, William Floyd still fumbled in the bowl game. They didn't call it. There was still no clip in Florida State, Nebraska. They called it. Jesse James caught that ball for the Steelers against the Patriots in the AFC Championship. Scottie Pippen and New York Knicks, they still called that a foul. Like, this stuff happens. You cannot get into legislating when you should do something and when you should not, because you'll never win.
Mm-hmm.
You'll never win. I'm telling you, the same people that were like, oh man, you can't call that then, that's not defensive holding, are the same people that would tell you at the end of the Bengals Chiefs game that they didn't call holding. Right? It's like, are we really gonna sit here and act like on one drive you saw the essence of the inability of the NFL to decide what a catch is? If you're in the field of play, you need a third step. But if you're in the field of play and you're towards the sidelines or the end zone, just control the ball. So Philly fan or people that were the Eagles are getting a break, you guys are cool with that on the very same drive, two things. And be honest. Be honest. Which one of those look more like a catch real time? Sanders or Goddard? I'm here all day. 888-638-4876. But then we want to get into the spirit of the rule.
Right.
Then the spirit of the rule matters. But not when it's a DB holding a receiver. Then guess what matters? What time of game it is. Because if you're the spirit of the rule guy,
right,
that's a defensive hold. The DB, you know what Bradbury said? Hey man, that's on me. That is on me.
Which
that's a hold.
Kind of shoots down every argument.
But do you know why I get like this? Do you know why I get like this during officiating talk?
Yes.
This is all we're taught to do.
Mm-hmm.
Coaches teach players control what you can control. So it's a condition. You don't make excuses, because every coach and every player wants to play in a game where it doesn't come down to that. And if it comes down to that, you're somehow conditioned to think that's on you. So it's just natural. I can't help it. Like, your coaches will tell you at least 17 times during the course of a week of practice, you need to play in such a way so it doesn't come down to this. You need to leave no doubt so it doesn't come down to this. So that's all competitors really know. And you're taught ownership. I told you, what was I standing applauding Coach Rule and the staff for at the end of the clinic? The cycle of a play. Right? I didn't even put it on Twitter, but the cycle of a play. Do you know what it was at the end of the play clock when the play's over? Own it, snap it again. Own it, snap it again. Like, what are we talking about?
Right.
Oh, that was a third step. Oh, nope. You know what? Control on the catch when he was going out of bounds. Hey, if he's in the end zone, the minute he crosses that deal, we're good. Like, are we really going to do that? You'll drive yourself crazy trying to legislate it. I laugh. I seriously laugh when we get into this.
So there's some things I want to address, and I want to address both parties when I say this. First, there was a tug. Was it a lot? No. Does it happen on every play? Yeah, probably. Do I like the call being made in that moment because little tugs come and go? No. Did it decide the game? Yes. But there was contact at the end of the day. And plus, when a DB comes out and says there was contact, well, every argument kind of gets thrown down the drain. He admitted to causing a penalty. Second, all those Chiefs fans and people out there, and I know there's a lot in our audience, and I may not be attacking all people when I say this, so don't take it as if you're going to go into defense mode here. But everybody out there saying the Eagles got outscored 24-11 in the second half. Quit crying about one call. That may have to be the worst attempt at an argument in all of sports.
You coughed up but
teams cough up leads all the time. And that doesn't mean that one call can't have an impact on the outcome of a game. If you're winning in a game just because you played poorly at some point doesn't mean that you deserve to lose at the end of the game.
We're validating Jalen Hurts this morning, right?
Correct.
Was Jalen Hurts part of a scoop score touchdown going the other way?
He was a part of that.
Was that his fault?
Let's just say he dropped the football.
So what did the call have to do with you guys letting Kadarius Toney catch a punt on the run and go 60 yards in crunch time?
And I'm not saying that the call
do you know what I mean?
Decided this game, but what I'm saying is I hate when people say, well, they were outscored 24-11 in the second half. Like you're going to focus on this one call. And it's like,
hey,
people lose leads every single day.
How does that go again?
Oh, you get 24-11 and you're outscored, and here we go again. I hate that argument too, because why are we talking about a team that did not perform as well as they did in the first half? Just because the other team performed better than they did in the first half to tie the game, essentially at that point. What are we doing?
Man,
that doesn't mean that, hey, I played poorly and I can't have a better final 5 minutes of this football game.
I'm just telling you, go. Man, I hate to make this about Westside, but go back and watch Gretna's go-ahead drive when they scored, when Weber creased us on like that 19, 20-yard run. Go back and look at the calls on that drive. DVD's out. It's a fit. Go back and look at those calls. The roughing the passer, the blind side to a running back. Those aren't penalties. But guess what, though? You know what our coach said on the headset? Listen, Coach Lamanji hit us up real time on our headsets. Fellas, get control of your groups on the sidelines. We're in this for the long haul. No BCD. You know what BCD stands for us? No blaming, complaining, deflecting. We didn't like it.
Thank goodness those were in that order and not a different order.
So that's... I mean, 2 minutes to go. It's hectic, right? It's like, oh my gosh, this is really going to happen to us again. No, you have to recalibrate, because that's the beauty of coaching and playing. You get the opportunity to overcome that kind of stuff, and you don't talk about it. It's like I've been triggered on this show probably 3 or 4 times, right? 2 or 3 of them have to do with
officiating talk.
Officiating. Get over it.
And you know me, I kind of fall in the middle more times than not. Whether it's, hey,
dude, they're flawed. They're flawed.
Exactly.
Like, it is hard. I watched man. I watched a couple of calls on the mat this weekend and the Big Ten, and I was like, ooh, I don't know. But then I'm thinking to myself, gosh, you know what? 197-pounders aren't supposed to look like that and be able to be that explosive. They probably don't see moves like that a ton. Like, what happens if, Drew Down, since you're wearing your Eagle green, what happens if they don't call that hold on Juju Smith-Schuster
in the first quarter?
No, on the.
Oh, I'm sorry. At the end of the game,
if they don't call that, aren't we having the discussion the exact opposite way?
I don't know, because
really,
I think at that point in the game,
you know what it would turn into? He could have got there.
Well,
how do we know he couldn't have got there?
Right. That probably would have popped up. But I think at that point in the game, the talk really became, hey, this game got pretty boring once the 3-minute mark hit.
Oh,
because they got a first down and now they're taking knees and they're just playing for a field goal.
Okay. 2 things. Are we going to act like the Eagles just didn't give up a 5-minute drive?
Oh, no, 100%.
Are we really going to act
like what, 5?
Don't give that guy back the ball. We said that, right?
Right.
Sure, it's easier said than done. But they put together a 5. They were scoring in like 12 seconds, and all of a sudden they put together a 5-minute drive. So
let's play calling.
So let's say, okay,
but that's what I was saying. Like when you said, what would it look like, right? If that didn't get called, people would be probably more enthusiastic.
So the Eagles
about the
get
game
the ball back with
tied.
what, a minute 30,
right. And they're down what, 3? Say Butker made the kick.
Okay,
they're down 3, and now you get the Eagles the ball back.
Does that mean they win, or they just had the chance to
no,
win?
I think it's more
butterfly effect.
I think it's the butterfly effect. I think it's more excitement for the fans at that point. But that's not to say that would even happen, right? And you know, that's also not to say that Butker misses that kick, right? and now it's tied. They get the ball at the 40. Eagles go down and score, or, they kick a field goal win, or Butker makes it, they tie it, we go to OT. There are so many scenarios that can get thrown in. That's the excitement fans wanted and were looking for. They just didn't get it because the Chiefs are so good at clock management.
You know what the players are doing right now?
Don't hate the player, hate the game.
You know what the Eagles players are doing right now?
They are wishing.
They're going back, kicking themselves over things that they could have done differently to not put themselves in that position.
Yeah, they aren't blaming one call. They are thinking about everything else that happened. Hey, why did our special teams unit not get to Tony on a kick which let's credit Tony here. The fact that he had to bend all the way over with his momentum going toward the football, it's hard enough to catch a punt, whether it's coming down at you and you're standing straight up.
The Eagles were the better team for darn near almost 3/4 of the game.
Hey, so listen, when the Kansas City took the lead in the fourth quarter, I said to myself, how in the world are they winning this game? It seemed like the Eagles were in control. It was kind of a Jedi mind trick. I don't know what happened, but the first time that the Eagles had the punt, you're like, they get the return.
They had everything aligned for them. I mean, they had the guy that was setting records that could have been the MVP. I mean, they had the lead. It was all there for 3/4, and then it just fell apart. I mean, they even had the better game plan, I thought, coming out of the chute.
They clearly look like the better team. But I think we thought that going in, right? When they said last week,
I couldn't believe they were a dog.
You're like, why do you like the Chiefs? And I was like, well, I know, full disclosure, I think the Eagles have the better roster. They have the better team. The Chiefs have Patrick Mahomes. I mean, that's exactly, and it played out that way, but it looked like the Eagles were the better team.
A lot more still to discuss with this conversation. We'll do that next. We'll get to our poll question. Michigan Lance, stick around. We will get to you at the start of the next segment as well. We appreciate your calls, 888-638-4876. We've got a 3-hour show today ahead. We will get off the air at 10 o'clock. I know you're excited about that. I will give you the full lineup when we come back as well. Stick around. It's Coffee and Cream in the Morning on Hail Varsity Radio. Hey, welcome back to the show. It's Coffee and Cream in the Morning on Hail Varsity Radio, powered by Currency. He's Damon Benning. I'm Andrew Rogers, and we're having fun on the day following the Super Bowl. We're live from the Chevrolet stage at Hail Varsity Club. I'm having fun. You're a little fired up. I did ask you.
It's all relative.
I did ask you coming out of the break, and you know what? I'm going to hold that because I'll set up the show because we'll get down a rabbit hole.
Hey, we probably should set up the show.
Well,
at least we got 3 hours. We got time.
We've got a lot to get to. We have Creighton and UConn reaction from over the weekend, and boy, let me tell you, that game made me want to rip my eyes out. Sam McEwen at 8 o'clock. What, you're about to add to my point about that game?
That was wild.
I know. Hold your thoughts because we've got a lot to get to. Hold them strong, DB. Nebraska basketball, all of a sudden, really competitive again.
You know who looks like a genius right now? It's early. I better not give that to him because it'll be another one of our Lincoln guys. I've said that about Kevin Suits a month ago.
Right.
When Sam said what he thought Nebraska's record could be, and I was like, dude, that would be fantastic.
And then I came back and told you that, hey, I think Wisconsin's a winnable game.
Yeah,
so
it's definitely in play. Nobody saw 12-2 in overtime.
Yes. Yeah, it was a blowout in OT.
And I believe Wisconsin took the lead 63-61.
I believe they started off.
And that was it.
They started it off, yep. Guess what's back, DB?
Guess what's back? Back again. Baseball.
Baseball is back. We'll get into a little baseball talk later on in the show. Pitchers and catchers report today.
Let's get it.
And position players will report shortly after. That's going to be on the 16th, which is Thursday. Do I have my math right there?
Yes, that is correct.
Cynthia Freeland will be on with us at 9 o'clock. One of our favorites, or has become a favorite after one appearance. At least she's been one of my favorites for a long time. Analytics expert for NFL Network. We'll play Take It or Leave It at 9:30, and then I've got something special planned at 9:45, so we'll hold on to that. But before we move on from anything else, let's get back to Super Bowl talk. Michigan Lance on line one with us. Lance, thanks for sticking around for the majority of that first segment to let us get our thoughts out. But now your time. I'm interested to hear what you have to say about last night's game.
That was a great game.
100%.
That game had everything that what football is, and then also everything the NFL is. Yeah, it had it all, man. From you got a passing league to a mobile quarterback league to the old school where you still need to run the football. What the NFL and football has always been league, but people seem to forget. Good defense. That's where we're at in the NFL now. It's hard to hold great teams under like 25, 28 points. So, go ahead, baby.
No, I'm good. Like, you know, who would Hurts have been the MVP if the Eagles won?
Yes.
No question.
Okay.
Well, yeah, that's up for debate.
No, I'm just curious because when you looked at the performance, you saw the 15 for 70 rushing and the quarterback sneaks.
Right. Well, and the touchdowns, like he had 3 rushing touchdowns.
That's what I'm saying. The rushing touchdowns with the quarterback sneaks, but he had the 1 touchdown pass. I just was curious, like, if that was one of those performances when you're watching him real time. I'm not talking about going back at the end of the game where you're watching real time and you're like, that's an MVP performance. Because when you look look at the stats right now, I think he was 27 of 38 for 304. Did it seem like that? Because he only had the 1 touchdown.
It seemed more like that than it seemed Mahomes didn't throw for 200 yards.
It was such a weird game.
Right, but hey, how about those? He should have had another touchdown pass. Your boy could stay in bounds. Devontae Smith. That was a touchdown pass. And then the other guy dropped that ball. I can't remember who that was. That was another long bomb that was a great ball by Hurts. The guy didn't pull it in. So most definitely he was the MVP if they won. And he actually, I mean, looking at I thought he played better than Mahomes. But
I thought so too.
What the Eagles defense didn't do was get a turnover or create a turnover.
Hang on, though.
And they didn't get a stop when they needed.
Do you know how many incompletions Mahomes had?
Oh, he had a passer rating of 131. He didn't.
Do you know how many? So no, I'm just saying, like we just casually said he outplayed Mahomes,
right? But it's because Mahomes didn't do as much statistically, but he didn't. Did
we not see the 30-yard scramble?
Yes, I saw the 30-yard scramble.
Like, I don't know. We kind of just let that roll off the tongue. Like he played better than Mahomes.
Here, we didn't say Mahomes played bad.
No. Hang on. Okay, that sounds like something Jay would say. Just because I said one thing is not saying you said the other. What you guys did casually say is, well, I certainly thought he played better than Mahomes. That's not saying you said Mahomes played bad. That's you saying that's you. Yeah, you know me. Don't try to get me. That's you guys saying Hurts clearly outplayed Mahomes. Well, he did not clearly outplay Mahomes. He did. Mahomes made plays.
All I said was he outplayed him. Like,
no, but Michigan Lance, I don't know if he did. He threw for 3 scores. He only had 6 incompletions. He had 7 yards per carry on a sprained ankle. I don't know about that.
Who was drugged up more, Patrick Mahomes or Cocaine
Well, we saw it on the left. Oh, my Lord. Oh, I'm going to lock you two in a room together.
I'm not even knocking what you're saying. Like, that was a great performance. I'm not knocking it. I mean, but Jalen Hurts put on a great performance too.
Yeah, but you said clearly. You said clearly.
I don't know.
Okay,
we'll have to go back on the tape.
I guess. Listen, man. Let me rein it back in. I'm not saying like 10 times better.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that he outplayed him, not by a lot, but he outplayed him. Yeah, and here's why. Because guess what? People say that. Let's be honest. People want to say Jalen Hurts is a running quarterback, right? And the 3 rushing touchdowns can mislead you.
Sure.
That man was throwing the ball down the field.
Oh, yeah.
He should have had another long bomb with the drop, and then Devontae Smith can't stay in bounds and score. If he gets that, you know what I'm saying? Like, that would have took a rushing touchdown away and gave him another passing touchdown. Jalen Hurts was out there balling. Like,
no question.
It wasn't no dink and dunk, Tom Brady, let's throw 30 attempts of screens in Super Bowls. Like, he was pushing the ball downfield and was accurate. So
Hey.
I'm not going to downplay. Jalen Hurts played. He played, man.
Hurts
And
27
He
of
balled
38.
out.
I'm a
Mahomes
Hurts
balled
guy.
out too.
Hurts was 27 of 38. Mahomes was 21 of 27. They were essentially neck and neck in the
You guys
completion
aren't
percentage
aren't
category.
understanding what I'm telling you.
Yeah,
though.
you're saying he played on one ankle. We get
No,
it.
I do understand what you
And guess who
Patrick
didn't
Mahomes
fumble?
played. That was-
Patrick Mahomes didn't fumble and give up a scoop score.
Hey, he didn't also take a sack either.
I
which is
agree.
crazy.
I got you, man. Hey, but DB, I'm not sitting here talking about. Hey, Andy Reid, man. I want to talk about Andy Reid real quick.
Yeah, go ahead. We got
Andy
about 2
Reid,
minutes.
Let's not talk about revisionist history with Andy Reid. The reason he's better is because Eric Bieniemy helps him run the ball.
Absolutely.
He should have had 2 Super Bowls with the Eagles. 2 Staley 20-degree weather against the Bucs. They didn't run the ball and lost. Lost in the Super Bowl, had 45 yards against New England, and should have won rushing yards. Should have won that game in the Super Bowl. And then now with Eric Bieniemy, they ran over 100 yards twice in Super Bowls and won. I don't know if Eric Bieniemy can coach on his own, and I don't know if Eddie Reid can coach a Super Bowl without him, but I know together they're great. And don't be in a rush to leave, and don't be in a rush to get rid of a guy when things are going good.
Hey, let me ask you one more quick thing, because this came up this weekend about Nebraska fans treating Chuck with some hostility, even though the Hepburns love it, right? I mean, like Greg is laughing in his sleep about competitiveness.
Okay.
Did you think Chucky was going to be as we've talked about him for years? Did you see this coming offensively?
Yes, but not until his senior year.
Yeah, he's a little ahead of
I
schedule.
wasn't on the hype train sophomore year. I told you I needed to see a little bit more.
Yeah.
Because he had a Big Ten offer his sophomore year. I was like, I don't see it yet. But he grew into that, and by the time he was a senior, man, yeah, he's every bit of what I thought he was going to be. His attitude, even with the 5-star, who's the guy, Miller North and Gonzaga?
Salas.
Chucky was better than him. Now, you want to talk about clearly? Chucky Hepburn was clearly better than, I can't remember his name.
Hunter Salas.
Hunter Salas in high school. I'm sorry. And I knew he was going to be a better college player because he was tougher. And he had that attitude, that killer, that confidence. Like, Chucky didn't disappear in games and in high school. And if you're a 5-star, you can't disappear in games. And Hunter Salas did that a lot.
I don't know, man. Miller North's got a couple of state titles, though, bro.
No, hold on a second.
Lance, we appreciate you, man. Thanks so much for joining us.
You can't just pee on my man like that. Like, Salas was a bowler.
We'll talk more now.
Salas got 1 state title. He was a 5-star.
We brought it up a little bit last segment. Let's get into this now. It's Coffee and Cream in the Morning on Hail Varsity Radio, powered by Currency. Still plenty of Super Bowl talk. You'll hear it throughout the show. It's not going to go away today.
Hang on.
Uh-oh.
No, I'm just saying.
Are we following up from our previous conversation when we had to go to break?
Yeah. So with the state championship results, Miller North did go back-to-back.
Going back-to-back.
To win state championships, and they beat Bellevue West in 22 and 21. Now, that's not necessarily a Hunter versus Chucky thing, but in 2020, it was Bellevue West won 64-62. So I just don't want to act like
one was better than the other.
And listen, and they were
both studs.
It's a spectacular discussion, and I'm on record, right? I said if I had a game to win, if I had a game to win, even back then, I would take Chucky, right? Just like I said in high school, because this was a fantastic stretch. You had Xavier Watts at Burke, and you had Xavier, one with an X, one with a Z, at Bellevue West. And I said if I had one game to win, give me Watts. Now, the 2 guys that I didn't take, you could easily make the case more upside. So I understood playing the long game, right, between Betts and Salas. You look at the athleticism, the size, the physical attributes, but at the end of the day, I settled in on winning, like who wins more, because that's always what I'm going to ride with. I mean, you can be 6'4" and throw the ball 65 yards, and you could do it on one knee, and man, you can throw that little bang 8 route like nobody's business. But if you wet the bed with 4 minutes to go, or I can't I can't count on you to find a way to get a first down. I'm taking the other guy every day that ends in Y.
Did you have a problem with the booze on Chucky Hepburn?
No,
I didn't either.
No,
but I heard a lot of people on social media kind of getting up in arms about
even my man Jacob.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing because you don't normally see like people like I haven't seen it all year. Somebody get booed. Let the fans have fun. That's how I took it. You paid money to go to this game.
Listen.
You're watching Chucky Hepburn. You're poking at him a little bit. It's not like I didn't take it as far as when I saw his dad pop on Twitter and say, "Oh, it's because of the zip code." I didn't take it that far right away. But I thought the fans were just having fun, and Chucky embraces that. Chucky's a baller.
So does Greg.
Like you embrace that stuff when you're a Division I athlete, a professional athlete, whatever you are. You embrace the fact that somebody's going to hate you.
That's why you go. That's
your extra motivation to shut somebody up in a game.
Play the game, man.
I loved the fact that Nebraska started to boo Chucky. I love the fact that Chucky more times than not hit the big shot to kind of calm everybody down.
Well, right? What was he 8 of 20?
But he had some nice step backs and not at the
how about
not
the one
to
he hit
close
from
the game.
The baseline.
Yes.
Ugh. But how gutsy and I know we were ready to go all in on Creighton and UConn. How gutsy was Nebraska in OT considering? Do you realize they didn't
listen, you know I was about to say something.
They didn't score a field goal the last 3 minutes and some change in regulation.
Neither team.
And one going away in overtime. Talk about resolve. Listen, if you're not playing for your coach, or that university, or you're not all in, you don't do that in overtime. You don't. That right there lets you know that Coach Hoiberg has full control, and that staff, because he's got some great help. But I mean, and good on him on the coaching acquisitions. He's got some great help in resetting the culture on the fly twice this season. He changed the mentality to start the season, how he built the roster, playing defense, and he reset it again after all the injuries. And it's like
he may have actually done that 3 times because after Gary and then after Bandamel, he may have had to do it twice mid-season.
It's like what a.
You know what's great is
I get it. There's going to be in my DMs. They're going to tell me about the 31% win clip.
There it is. You know what's great is I talked to 5 different people yesterday at random points in the day, all over the place. Man, who's that Japanese player that Nebraska has? What's his name again? I was like, oh, Tominaga. Dude, that guy's really good. I said, yeah, at the start of the year, did you even know that they had a guy coming off the bench that could totally stroke it?
Yeah.
And they're like, no. I mean, everybody had hype on Griesel. Everybody had hype on Jawan Gary transferring. Everybody had hype on Bandamel and all of these other big names. And then here comes Tominaga out of the dust, and he has been Nebraska's best player since the injuries.
Last 2 weeks, yeah.
Since the injuries.
And full disclosure, he drives me bonkers. Right.
I love it. I love his flair. I love his pizzazz. Every time he takes a shot, this dude will stand there and like hold his arm up in the air for 3 while everybody else is getting back on defense and the ball's being inbounded. He just stands there.
He's wild.
He's not afraid to sprint back on D once he gets his moment, about a second and a half or whatever it is.
So, like full disclosure, and I think he was 7 of 14 the other day. Full disclosure, what I have come to appreciate, his resolve. Just perseverance, because he was the point of consternation in barbershops, on message boards, at the water cooler. Oh, man, he's going to score 3, but he's going to give up 6. He's going to score 2, and he's going to give up 3, and he can't play. Listen, the ability. And now he's shooting the ball inside the arc a smidge. Now, I could take or leave the little running floaters, but, hey, do what you do. But you talk about, like, just him being a microcosm of them playing free flowing is unbelievable. Like all of a sudden, Blaise Keita looks like.
Hey, I'll tell you what, could be the sleeper player of the game.
Well, we've been. So if you follow, you talk to these guys that either watch practice or go to go to practice. Like they've liked him for a long time. Played a little bit early, then all of a sudden kind of disappeared, and you're like,
hustle player,
rehab project, right? And now all of a sudden, with more minutes, like the more basketball he plays,
it's anybody.
And now your hand is forced.
That's anybody, though, right?
Well,
the more basketball you play,
sometimes though,
the better you get as a player.
Sometimes the more exposure. You give yourself the more opportunity you have to show what you truly are. So there's no but
the more reps you get, the better you get individually. That's at least how the adage reads, right? The more reps you get, the better you become.
Some guys, the more they play, the more you hold your breath.
Yeah, you can get exposed for sure. But you would have to say that I would say the majority of cases, the more reps you play, the better you are.
I don't have percentages. I just know it's not that linear.
As a coach, I can't really argue you too much. But
you could.
But
look, you ever had a goalie spell another goalie, and he can get off to a good start, but over time things reveal themselves? Yeah, but those are the things that does that mean he's getting better? Not necessarily.
But here's the thing, though. If you get exposed, what in turn happens? Whether you take to the bench, whether you get sent down, whatever it is, you will work on your game.
You could, but that doesn't.
Then you come back even better.
It's not that linear, though. It's
getting better on reps. You get more comfortable. That would easily make you better just instantly. Getting more comfortable in that moment.
There's this thing called real life in-game situations, and some people just don't get over that hump because of what it is. I've said this for years, and take it from me because I was a spell the guy. It's much easier to spell the man than it is to be the man. So I'll always subscribe to that age-old adage because some guys are built and designed to be complementary pieces. Not to say
I'm not saying that's wrong.
Not to say that you can't get better, but at what degree does that happen where it changes the way that you play in games? I'm not saying it's going to be life-changing results. It's hit and miss.
I'm not saying it's going to be life-changing, but the more reps you get, the better an individual is going to be, whether that's for his own personal well-being or whether that's for the team. Just because you experience more moments now, you have a little more cred.
Is that like
game?
Yeah, is that like Matt Flynn?
Yeah.
Scott Mitchell. I mean, where are we going to go with this?
There are players. I'm not saying you're wrong.
You know what I mean?
But I would venture to say that
although Flynn is $10 million richer.
I was going to say there are people out there that would say that, hey, I mean, at least those guys would probably say if I didn't play, I wouldn't be able to experience what I did because I did get those reps.
So if you're Nebraska right now, how do you want to play? You're really running that offense through Casey, right?
You have to.
Sam,
feed the hot hand.
D-Walk was still the man, though. Like
he is.
He did assert himself.
Well, and Sam was really strong during that 17-point deficit.
When D-Walk flexed, did you see any of the muscles? I think he's just a big guy.
Does D-Walk move in slow motion when he has the ball?
Man.
I feel like when he takes his steps to the hoop, he travels every time. But it's just because he's so slow in his steps, and that's not a knock on him. It's just what I see. When you see him turn to go to the hoop, because he's so strong, he likes to face up to the basket more than he likes to back somebody down and do some type of hook shot.
This is kind of a weird analogy, but I'll use it just because you saw him just this weekend. The way that he can use his shoulders and be kind of a below the rim guy where he positions like how he wants to move. Does he not remind you of Kevin Stubblefield from West Side?
A little bit. Yeah.
It's like, how did he get that shot? He dislodges you with like these little subtle touches.
Hey, fantastic.
Unlike what we'll get into with Sonogo and Kalkbrenner.
Right. Oh my goodness. Well, we have a lot. I still have a lot to say about Creighton. We'll get to that in the next hour. We're going to talk to Sam McEwen next, but just finishing up, we're going to close this pool of thoughts here. Westside and Nebraska, great basketball games over the weekend. That's all I have to say. McEwen's next.
Coffee and Cream with Rogers and Benning on Hail Varsity Radio. Here is the sports editor for the Omaha World Herald, Sam McEwen.
That's fine. fine. That's fine. That's fine.
Sam McEwen.
We're gonna throw the ball, and you just stand back there and throw it where you want to go. That kind of thing.
Sam McEwen.
Are you guys going? Sure.
Now, Sam McEwen.
Hey, top of the hour, 888-638-4876. If you'd like to get involved in the show at any point, it is Coffee and Cream in the Morning on Hail Varsity Radio, powered by Currency, 590 ESPN Omaha. I'm stuttering here because is 1480? Are we 9 to 10 on 1480 this week?
I don't know.
Is that what it is?
I don't
know. Oh no, I should have asked Sasha.
I don't think that starts yet.
Okay. So I'm gonna ride that. I'm gonna ride that train.
It's funny. How many
we are
times
live
a
on
week do
Twitter,
we say
live on
that,
YouTube.
Sasha?
I know, right?
I don't know,
And we are having fun this morning following the Super Bowl. And let's have some more fun. We'll talk to Sam McEwen now. And as we always do on a Monday morning, we appreciate the sports editor and Nebraska columnist for the Omaha World Herald to join the show. He also writes for Husker Extra. Sam, good morning, man.
Good morning. How are you guys doing?
Sam, we're good, man. What's up with the weather report? Where are we at in the capital city?
It's gorgeous. Oh, come on. It's gorgeous today.
He said, "Oh, come on."
Hey,
this is going to be the best day of the year so far. And then the next 3 days are going to be some of the worst.
So what are you guys getting, 57, 58 degrees?
61.
Ooh, yeah, not mad.
That's good. You guys are closer to the sun.
Is that how it means? Is that how it works, right? Hey, Sam,
Right.
biggest winner yesterday, was it the Chiefs or was it the Bears? Because we have the number one pick still.
No, it was the Chiefs.
Oh.
Just by a little. Good for them. I thought that was a fun game. Not a ton of great defense in it, but there was, Kansas City made one big play and scored 6 points off of it, and they had a punt return, and that was in large part the difference in the game. That and one call by the officials, and those three things all went the Chiefs' way. So there were three key things that the Chiefs had, but the Eagles did not, and they all went the Chiefs' way, and so they win by 3.
Sam, are you surprised that? And this is you, and you've known me forever, and this is going to be a hot. I'm very animate about leaving officials out of it, but why do you think we're so apt to get into officiating when we're ultimately going to lack consistency in our argument? Shouldn't we just leave well enough alone?
Because we all think we could be officials.
Oh, okay.
Most of us do not. Most of us know intrinsically that we could not do what Patrick Mahomes does. We can't. And so, somewhere deep down inside, we've learned in the last 20 years not to pretend we could be Patrick Mahomes or Jalen Hurts. Some of us figure we could be coaches or GMs, right? I could assess talent, and but all of us feel like we could be the officials. If I learned it, then I could do it for a year, and if they put me out there, I'd do the right thing in that moment. And, that's not true. That's not necessarily true, but it does. But people do feel that way, and then the other thing that we have is we have the advantage of slow-mo, not watching things in real time. The officials don't have the advantage of a camera in the sky that can help them look at things. So, we just have a hard time with human nature, and we all think we could be officials, and that's why. But that said, that was a call that you got to try to hold off on making in that moment. It needs to
absolutely not. Absolutely not, Sam. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. What? So you're okay with saying if you don't make that call at that time and you see the way that play went, you're okay with having the conversation of that should have been a penalty if they don't call it? Because that's the alternative.
Yeah, I am. In that particular moment, yeah, I'm okay with it. Yeah. I think it was, I think it was probably that would probably have been the way to err there. But I get it. I get how people might have felt the other way. I remember the pass interference call that wasn't called in the Saints-Rams game. I remember the pass interference call that wasn't called many, many years ago on Deion Sanders in the Sugar Bowl. So, I mean, I remember those. And so, yeah, I mean, it's certainly something to keep in mind and to remember.
Would your mind change, Sam, if it were Chicago in that case? Like if it was your team?
No.
What about what Bradbury said? Does the player matter?
To some degree, yeah, I think that matters to some degree. But still, I mean, it's just one of those moments. And again, like I don't think that's why the game was decided the way it was. I think there's a lot of things that could have happened in that moment, and as it turned out, that it allowed Kansas City to run the clock down. But there were other things in that game,
right,
that gave Kansas City the edge to win that game. One of those was the punt return, which was a great individual play. One of those was the scoop and score, which I think reflected to some degree, what they thought of Jalen Hurts on 3rd and 6, trying to run a quarterback draw. And then the other one, other than the officiating, is that Kansas City ran the football. And the Eagles did not run it as much as they had during the season. And they had a few possessions where the tide turned in the second half, and they just didn't make enough plays. They're going to kick themselves all off season, and not just because of the penalty. Philadelphia probably should have won the game, but they lost control of the game in part because they got a little enamored with their playbook and a little enamored with throwing the football.
We're talking to Sam McKewon, sports editor and Nebraska columnist for the Omaha World Herald and Husker Extra. Toss him a follow on Twitter at SWMcEwenOWH. Great follow. Sam, there was a tweet that popped up during halftime of that football game, and it came from the Husker football account. Do you think that was a good play or no on their part?
Well, yeah, I mean, they're trying to set a culture in that moment of saying, the next 24 hours, we're gonna kill it in recruiting. That's what that logo is for. So I'm guessing they were trying. Now it's possible that they set a timer for it and they forgot that it was during the Super Bowl. But no, I think they're trying to capitalize on a lot of people being on Twitter.
I think the same thing.
Yeah. So they know what they're doing.
That was a scheduled tweet for sure.
This is a strong group. Yeah, this is a strong group of coaches, and they have a pretty good idea of how they want to go about it. Of course, we're in a period right now where they can't go out and recruit. So, there's certain things they can't do in this moment. So probably won't be quite as robust as it was maybe in January, but they know what they're doing. And I'm sure this is the moment where you begin to build, toward the visits, those unofficial visits in March. Hopefully you get a couple commits out of that. I'm sure they feel that way. And then you're going to get those spring game visits. And that's where you begin to hope you start building the class right then and there. I'm sure they hope to have double-digit commits, maybe even 15 commits by the time the season starts. I'm sure that's where they want to be.
Hey, Sam, so at one point yesterday, Nebraska women's basketball got it to 51-51. Remember, Michigan hit the 3 to go up 51-48. Nebraska came and tied it. Were you more confident in Nebraska coming back then, or when Nebraska hadn't scored the final 3 minutes and some change, and it was 61-61 going into overtime? Who'd you have more confidence in real time?
I had more confidence in Nebraska men's basketball. Yeah, I did, and that wouldn't have been the case maybe last year. But yeah, I did. I think. Well, first of all, I mean, Nebraska women were playing a better team, which is part of it.
Yeah, but how that game had gone on for them to be tied, I was like, wow, that 7-0 run. I was like, they may be on to something here in Ann Arbor.
They might. I think they play very hard and they try very hard. They're a player short, and they have been since Allison Weiner went down. And beyond that, they're just not the same team they were last year. I was talking to Kevin Suits, 10-11 about this. I think it's increasingly hard for a team to basically run it back. Georgia, now people will talk about Georgia football, but people will also forget that Georgia football had to replace almost all of its defense. And so there is a huge advantage in that what Georgia brought back were a bunch of guys that were backups on last year's team and were hungry, especially on defense, to make those changes. And so, you know, they played, I think, with a zeal this season, in part because they had lost a bunch of guys. I think it's hard to run it back, and I think Nebraska women's basketball is basically running it back this year. It's not quite the same. You can tell. And Hybe being hurt was part of that. Mm-hmm. Weiner being hurt is part of that, but they're just not quite the same team. And I think they probably needed to add one or two more pieces in the off season. They didn't do that, and so now they're a player short, and so they fall a little short. Now, as for the men, you know, great win. That's a really important win for Nebraska, and it was a team win. Everybody on the floor did something. Blaise Keita did something. Casey did something. Griesel played actually a very good game, even though he didn't necessarily, you know, dominate. So I thought there was a lot of good things to be said, and they have a chance tomorrow night too. They do. Rutgers is a very specific kind of team, and if you can protect the ball, I don't know if Nebraska can do that, but if they can, they will have a chance, because Rutgers is without one of its top post players, and you know, Rutgers doesn't run away from a lot of teams. They don't score a lot of points. So Nebraska has a chance tomorrow night if they can hold on to the ball and protect it.
Sam, are you cool philosophically kind of saying that Nebraska had, because you don't answer the dinner bell like that in overtime without having some resolve and a pretty solid culture, right? I think that's safe to say, right? So
yeah,
are we okay kind of rationalizing and booing Coach Hoiberg and that staff's performance this year as a staff versus looking at the overall win-loss record?
Oh, yeah. Like, I think that they're, as Trev Alford said last week, they've made undeniable progress in the program. And I think part of that is just that you've got a lot of guys on that team who, you know, aren't necessarily fixated on what's the next step for my professional career. I do think Sam Griesel and Derek Walker will play somewhere, and I think Derek could actually play at a fairly high level. I don't know if that means the NBA, but, you know, Derek's got some skills that translate pretty well.
He played 41 minutes, Sam.
That's right. Yeah, and he was only pulled because he basically made a couple of mistakes. Otherwise, I think he probably would have played the full. But I don't think it's a team that's absorbed in, and what am I going to do next? I think last year's team had several guys where what they were thinking about wasn't the task at hand, but was the task ahead. And I think Nebraska got a little caught up in that. And, you know, it's a cautionary tale as to whether Nebraska or really any team continues to pursue one-and-done players or players who come in to college basketball and are immediately thinking about the NBA. You know, I think that's you know, Creighton's going to have to face that challenge with a five-star that they've got that's interested in them. Like, you have to think about it. Do you want to go get a player whose mind is half on the NBA already? Or do you want to go get players out of the transfer portal who maybe aren't that worried about that? And that's not, they know they're not going to play in the NBA for 12 years. And so what they're focused on is being the best college player they can be so that they can maybe get a chance overseas. And you don't get chances overseas based on, you know, projections. You get chances overseas based on good tryouts and being good college basketball players. They don't take guys overseas for, you know, averaging 3 and 2 and projecting 6 years from now to be a NBA sixth man. So I think that's probably something that's changed within the program since last year, and I think that's a good thing.
Sam, I want to jump back to Nebraska women's basketball for a hot sec. If they don't win out, will they make the tournament?
Well, so right now if they don't win out, they will finish some version of 17, 12, 16, 13, 15, 14, 14, 15. Anything less than 18 and 11, you're probably having to win 2 or 3 games in the Big Ten tournament. So if you go 17 and 12 and then you won 3 games in the Big Ten tournament, yeah, you could probably make you know, as a play-in seed, or maybe as the very last team that gets to bye. But no, they're on the wrong side of the bubble right now, and they need to go on a run. And I think they probably know that. Creighton's on the right side of the bubble. They're probably well on the right side of the bubble. And one of the things to remember is that in women's college basketball, it is better to be an 11 seed than it is to be an 8 seed. It's like you would rather be an 11 than an 8, because there is no difference between 11 and a 6. There really isn't. But there's a vast amount of difference between a 1 and a 2. And so women's college basketball is dominated by 3 or 4 teams at the very top. Those teams are unbeatable at home. You do not want to play them. And so the key for whether it's Creighton or Nebraska or anyone is you want to stay out of the 1 line going into the second game, because if you're able to do that, then you have a real chance of winning the second round game, because there's not that much difference between a 2 and a 10, or even a 3 or a 3 and an 11. There's a lot of difference between a 1 and a 3. Mm-hmm. That's sort of the wonky thing with women's basketball, and hopefully they're able to figure that out at some point, because I don't see the sport getting a ton deeper as it relates to elite teams. I think it's Stanford, South Carolina, and UConn, and maybe one other team, and they're going to have to find a way to either fix that or change the way that they run the tournament, because otherwise you get penalized for being an 8 seed versus an 11.
Hey, Sam, let me ask you something about wrestling. And listen, I get the niche kind of sport thing, and I've heard about this forever, even though, you know, I'm a big wrestling guy. Mm-hmm. I know Ohio State was down, I think, 3 All-America on Friday, and they got Rutgers over the weekend. They're continuing to win. When you look at Coach Manning's success relative to the degree of difficulty in the conference, where is he on the appreciation scale for you?
Well, he's underappreciated generally by all of us, but highly appreciated by me, in the sense that the Big Ten wrestling is Big Ten volleyball, right? Best in the country. No one better. But Big Ten wrestling is even a little better than Big Ten volleyball. We could talk for some time, and Manning would be better to speak to about how college wrestling works and why Penn State is so hard to beat, and how, you know, they utilize a training center for Olympians to leverage recruiting and all this other stuff. But the reality is there's a couple of teams in the Big Ten that are extremely hard to beat. Penn State and Iowa are very hard to beat any day of the week, based on not only their history, but their ability to leverage training partners and all kinds of stuff. So what Manning's able to do, based on not being able to do those things that Penn State and Iowa was able to do, is pretty amazing. He's got, I think, a team that he really likes. He's been fond of Peyton Robb for a long time, mm-hmm. and you know, Robb is become an elite wrestler in a short amount of time. So, you know, I think they've got a chance to win an individual national title. They've got a chance to finish in the top 5 or 6 nationally, and that's pretty darn good. You know, Nebraska's about, I don't want to say Nebraska's about as good as it could be, because you never want to discount the possibility that there might be a year in there where they get a couple of lower weight guys who could maybe get to the finals of the NCAA, and then they, you know, they pull off a national championship that way. But it's hard. It's hard with the way Penn State is built, and to poke through and win a national title. I know Manning maybe 7 years ago thought he had a team that could do it. I can't remember how long. It was a longer than that ago. It was like 12 years ago. They felt like they had a team, and then they had a situation where a kid got suspended. But yeah, so he's doing an incredible job, and has long been one of the best coaches in the sport.
Sam, oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Was that it?
I'm done.
Yeah. Oh, okay. My bad. Anything stick out to you, Sam, when you took a peek at the Super 6 rankings that were released last week? Were there any real surprises when you looked at, you know, what media members had to say and where they placed people? Like, if there was one thing you took away from those rankings, what would it be?
Well, that it's challenging to. So the Super 6 is done by 247 by Mike Schaefer. I'm a part of that too. It is a challenging thing to do when you're blending high school recruits and transfers. That's challenging because you don't exactly know how to measure impact of a player that might only be there 1 or 2 years versus one that might be there 5 years. So you have to be kind of thoughtful about how you're doing that. So, there was some. Jeff Sims is really high on the list, and then you've got Malachi Coleman's really high on the list. Riley Van Poppel was high on the list, which he should be. He was high on my list. So it's kind of a blend, and so you're kind of throwing a dart a little bit. The transfers are easier because you can kind of assess what they might do or might not do. So yeah, I don't know that I found any surprises. I do think it's a good group of defensive backs. If I was going to say the strongest position group for me is probably the DBs of the high school recruits. I think the wide receivers could be good too, and I think the edge rushers might be okay. But I like the two defensive backs that they got, Ethan Nation and Ramir Stewart. I think both are a little undersized, but are actually going to be very good players at Nebraska. Probably would have been, Alabama or, Clemson recruits if they were just a little taller. But I think they're going to be really good players at Nebraska. So I like them. I like Riley Van Poppel. And then among the receivers, certainly Malachi Coleman is a wild card. You just wonder how he's going to do at the collegiate level and whether he's going to develop and continue to get better as a player. But I think Jaden Doss is a player that I think is actually fairly close to being ready to contribute next year. Has the physicality that you like, 6 foot, 195, can run after the catch. So Doss would be my favorite receiver in that class. But I think it could be a good class. I think Demetrius Bell's going to be a pretty good player. Reminds me of Jamal Turner. And then Coleman, we'll see. I think he's a wild card. So for me, if you had a wild card spot, that would be hit the spot for him. And my sleeper was Quentin Ives. I really don't know. We'll just see. He's a really good athlete. I don't know if he's a running back. We'll see if that's what he is or if he goes to receiver or defensive back. But I think it was a good overall recruit to add to the program.
You guys both, I'm talking to one and sitting next to another. They both had Ethan Nation and your top 6. And I think that's rare, right? Because I know I didn't for a few reasons, and I even stuck with just high school guys. I didn't do transfers. You guys both like Nation quite a bit.
Yeah, he's got good tape, and I think he's again one of these players that 3 years ago got a bunch of offers, and then teams backed off because they're basing those offers on, well, we think you're going to grow 2 or 3 more inches, and they don't.
Right.
I could have easily put Ramir Stewart in there. Ramir Stewart is a very good player too, and I think he's going to be a nice player at Nebraska. Both a little undersized, but they fit that Marquise Buford mold. I think they're going to be good players at Nebraska.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, especially because you're talking about motivated guys at this point when they are undersized. Sam McEwen, thanks so much. We appreciate your time. We'll talk again next week.
Thanks, Sam.
Take care.
We'll talk Creighton basketball when we come back. I have a lot to say, but you got to stick around for it. Thanks for joining us if you're live on TikTok right now, or if you're catching us on 590, 1480, or maybe you're on YouTube seeing DB animated this morning after the Super Bowl. We're also live on Twitter. We're having some fun. It's a great day. We love Mondays. It's a great recap day.
A lot of funny people.
Hey, we're all about funny. And you know what was not funny was that Creighton UConn performance. And here's what I want to say. And it's not look, happy for the boys in town, happy for the Jays. They come away with the win. A lot of people will sit back and say, man, defensively, like these are 2 of the best teams in the nation, which they're right. If you look at statistics, you're absolutely right. But this game on both sides of the floor made me want to rip my eyes out. Like literally just tear my eyes out of the socket and just toss them to the side. Because neither team really played defense as much as people wanted to say that they played defense. How many offensive boards did Creighton allow in this game? 18, right? But UConn was so bad, they couldn't produce off of those 18 offensive boards. I believe it was 14 second chance points, 13 second chance points as I double check the box score in front of me. You have 18 offensive rebounds in this game, and you can't even capitalize on half when it comes to points.
Oh, they shot. When you shoot 32%.
I mean, just
from the
miserable
field.
Watching that team play. And good defense by Creighton to make them take the shots that they wanted them to. It kind of got away from them in the middle parts of that game. But what drove me crazy was the lack of rebounding defensively for Creighton in this game. It just drove me nuts. I'm sitting in the Heartland Event Center, multitasking, watching Wahoo come back and take down North Platte. And I have my phone out,
actually pretty good,
which was a great game. I had my phone out, and I could not fathom being in CHI and watching UConn just destroy Creighton down low on the glass.
Well, so with the way that the game, you know what was interesting? Then I had to go back and I was talking about this with Alvin because he was coaching. He missed both his kiddos' games. He missed Sharif's game and he missed CJ's game in Grand Island because he's coaching because he's got an organization. And we were talking to him before the game started. I'm giving him updates on kind of what's going on. And at one point, I couldn't believe with all the fouls that were called that UConn had only shot the ball from the foul line. At that point, it was twice.
Right, but 4 total
It was
times.
4 for the game. And Creighton had been to the line. I don't know what it was at that time. It was in the teens. I think they finished 13 of 17 or right around there. But the way that the game was officiated, you thought that there would be more free throw attempts. And I think ultimately, if you're UConn and you look back at this game, the 27 3-point attempts versus paint touches and getting downhill when you felt like it was going to be a tightly called game was ultimately their undoing. Like, why so many 3 attempts from behind the arc? Because as my man Alvin Mitchell likes to say, you're open for a reason. Right? It's like,
that is true. That is true.
7 of 27, and you only shoot 4 free throws.
Guess who had the most threes made in this game?
Oh boy. It was either Alexander or Sonogo.
Which one?
Sonogo had 2.
I like that noise. Can you make that noise again? It's like a balloon releasing helium. Or maybe something that gets released out of your hiney.
I'll go with Sonogo.
Hey, you are correct. 3 made 3-pointers from Sonogo. He can shoot it, which Kalkbrenner did get out on him most of the time, but he's not afraid to launch.
And Creighton won a game in which Kalkbrenner shot less than 50% from the floor.
Creighton won a game where Alexander was on the floor for only half of the game.
I'll tell you what,
because he was in foul trouble.
His points per minute, though,
but that's a
big
problem.
Shot maker, big shot taker.
That's a problem to be in foul trouble and knowing that right now at this moment, Alexander's your best player.
Yeah, and we got into this last week, and you guys kind of like you were Team Lorenzi, and I get it because Kalkbrenner's the man. But I wanted to get into valuable versus important. Did we make the distinction? Because we talked about this. I just don't listen. He guards their best player. He's gonna get double-digit shot attempts. At least he should. He's their technical foul shooter. Like he's vital.
He is vital. I would say I still am on the side of Kalkbrenner.
I get it.
The most irreplaceable player. But Alexander is the best player on the floor when he's out there.
That's so
because you use him in all of those moments. And I
just think he could do so many things.
100%. You can't take away Kalkbrenner's defensive prowess. Like if you do, it's a problem. You'll get worked down low. But what you need all game long is Alexander on the floor to make those shots. Remember what I said, last week when the announcers made a point, and I'm like, you know what? You're right. When Alexander is like the guy to go to the league, if it's anybody on this team, and it's because of all of those things that you just said. He's the best player out there at every point. You can't get into foul trouble, though, knowing that. And he's still a little young, a little youthful.
And he was fortunate. This is the second game in a row, and I felt like it doesn't necessarily show up in the box scores. But how good was Sharif Mitchell?
Great.
I mean,
great minutes from everybody from the bench. Miller made some shots.
Oh, so the three that he made, the corner three, and it's Miller. That's where he makes his threes from. But just the timeliness of it to kind of get the crowd back into it early, and it was like you're traipsing along. You're like, what kind of environments is going to be? But just the back and forth. And the funny thing is, I think the Hurley McDermott thing is like real. Or maybe Hurley's just like that with everybody.
Yeah.
I mean, you talk about unlikable. Like, what is going on?
You wouldn't hang out with him?
Well, is he talking to the players when he's with those antics? Like, who's he talking to when he's on the sidelines? Hopefully it's his own guys. But like that game was wild. And that's the second one where Creighton wins a gutty kind of muck it up, ugly kind of game.
And you know what? All you need is a win at the end of the day.
And this is followed by 10 days ago. They were coming off back-to-back stretches of everybody scoring in double figures where the offense was like this beautiful thing to watch. The more ways that they can win, and they've done it during this win streak. Sometimes it's been that efficient offense. They're starting to lock teams up defensively. Like, they got some options, man, in ways that they can play.
Good teams win when you shoot the ball well. Great teams win when you overcome shooting woes. And that's what we saw here. We got about 50 seconds. Let's go to the line here, Shane. We'll talk to Kim. Kim.
Let's get over that.
Hi, Kim.
Kim, welcome to the show. We got about 40 seconds. What's going on?
Oh, good morning. I just wanted to make sure that we got the tweet right. I love Mason Miller.
Oh, yep. You know what? When I mentioned his name, I'm like, well, we have to get to Kim so that she can talk about Mason.
That's your guy, Kim? were you like a proud mom?
I was. The last couple of games, actually.
Yeah.
As you should be.
And the cool thing about this team, Kim, like their minutes haven't mattered. They're ready on the spot. That's pretty cool.
Oh, yeah, it's really cool. I do get a little bit worried, though, when I don't see Kaluma scoring much, but that's okay. Got to win sometimes the ugly way.
Yeah, 0 of 6 and they still get a dub, Kim. That's pretty good.
Like I said, great teams win when they play poorly.
Can I make one comment about the Super Bowl?
Go ahead.
What is this phrase when I think the guy fumbled, but we didn't call it, which is like, he didn't complete the process of catching the ball.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
Yeah, we got to get into that.
Yeah, we'll, you know what? We'll talk about it next. How about that? Stick around. We'll be back. Hey, welcome back to the show, 888-638-4876. This may be a great opportunity to provide your thoughts because we were talking to Kim, and if it cut out on the radio, I'll explain exactly what she asked. She was talking about, hey, what's a catch in the NFL?
I don't know.
It is a catch when you have full possession of the football and then you make a football move.
Well, now it's this thing called the third step.
Right. And that's like the third step, the football move, right? Or is it,
it's a bad take on a Drew Hill song.
You have to control the football all the way to the ground, which looms large in DB's head still to this day when he talks Jesse James, which is not a cowboy, as Shane found out during the break. So, right, Shane?
No big deal.
I thought that was a motorcycle guy.
Nope. Jesse James is a football player. Used to be a tight end for the Steelers, and this was Week 15 against the Patriots. When would you say this was? What year?
I don't know, 17 or 18?
17? Okay, regardless, doesn't really matter the year. But the play was this, if you forgot. Big Ben looks right, pumps, moves the defense, throws down the middle. Jesse James catches it about a yard or two short of the goal. Full possession when he catches the football. Knee hits the ground, falls over the goal line, ball moves, right? Shakes up a little bit in his hand. ruled on the field a touchdown, reviewed, ruled an incomplete pass. So why did DB bring up this point? Well, because last night, is this when we were talking Miles Sanders, right? Throw out wide. Miles Sanders makes the catch, gets immediately hit, loses the football. Bolton picks it up, runs it for a touchdown. Ruled on the field a touchdown, right? Goes to review it. Incomplete pass because he didn't make that so-called football move. So where do you sit with all of this? Because you're somebody that takes this personally, right? Because you started with Jesse James and it hits you.
Well,
and it's a confusion thing for you over anything else.
That's the thing, man. It's not just it's a Jesse James thing. I mean, Dallas Cowboys fans are like, are we really having this conversation with Antonio
Bryant?
With Des Bryant? Calvin Johnson. Shane, you're a Lions fan. The catch, no catch. And when's the mythical line? Like, if you're in the end zone, 2 feet is 2 feet with control of the ball. If you're on the sidelines, 2 feet is 2 feet with control of the ball. If you're in the field of play, 2 feet isn't 2 feet with control of the ball. That's the part that drives me crazy. And I just wanted people to be honest, like, because maybe I'm not seeing it correctly. But which one real time? Because that's what officials do, right? They make calls real time. And then you can challenge or not challenge, right? But real time, which one looked more like a catch? Sanders or Goddard?
So when you catch the ball and you have,
I thought Goddard.
I still don't even know if he had what I would call control. So let me ask. So here's. But this is what makes it dicey, because we use the term control. Okay. We think control means secure. Sanders had that ball put away
in his chest.
He had it right here.
Mm-hmm. In his chest.
Now, is he going to come from here to move it? Is he had it like this, almost like this, which was more secure than Goddard ever had the ball. But what they do with 2 feet for Goddard is he didn't put it anywhere near his body to secure it. Mm-hmm. He had it secured in his hands. Right. Am I making?
No, you're painting a good picture.
So what's the difference in the field of play versus on the sidelines? Because if you're talking control and security, Sanders looked to have more control of the ball.
It did.
Than at any point than Goddard ever did.
But I think he lost control of the ball faster than Goddard. And
that's the thing.
And that's the reason.
So that's why they say you should get a chance to catch the football. And
so here's my thing.
In an already offensive driven league, why does my guy have to be able to gain ground for it to be a catch?
I don't even know if he made the catch, right? He caught it, gets hit right away, loses the football.
So if I'm running like a little tunnel screen,
right,
or a little smoke, it's like they just get it out to me quick. The DB wins and he gets there simultaneously, and the ball comes out. Does the wide receiver have to have made a football move for that to be a catch?
According to the rules, yes.
But I can throw a little smoke out there to him, and let's say it's an errant pass. Mm-hmm. As long as he secures it a little before he goes out of bounds, that's a catch.
I just don't think Miles Sanders ever really had it, because he got hit like so bang bang. And so when you ask me the question, which seemed more like a catch, I say Goddard, because Goddard was able to control the ball all the way to the ground, whether he so-called had control or not.
You know what's funny?
In people's view,
Miles Sanders knows he caught that ball.
Well, he caught and got hit. Yeah. He got lit up.
He knows he caught that ball. Did you catch that? Yep.
Well, he caught it, but it was so bang bang.
Did you drop it
right when it happened?
That's what he's going to say. But we let the interpretation of the rule bail him out.
Right when it happened, I said that's an incomplete pass.
And I'm like,
just because of the rule. Yes, 100%. You can ask the player, and he would say he caught that ball.
Caught that ball,
100%.
But 100 times out of 100, a player in real football says I caught that ball.
But based on what we saw, based on the review, it was an incomplete
and
pass.
It's already hard enough for.
I couldn't believe they ruled it complete right away. I honestly could not.
To me, it looked like
from
a catch.
All of the plays that I've seen.
I want ownership of it. I caught that. If that was, I would tell you, I caught that ball. I caught that ball.
Maybe not in the maybe you'd tell that to your teammates, but you wouldn't tell that to everybody else. You'd be like, hey, I'll take the incomplete pass. I'll take the bunny.
I just think players and coaches know they get let off the hook.
Tons of times.
So, no, like, we don't have any problems with that. Like, the reality of it is you caught a break. You don't want to play nor coach like that. You'll take it because that's part of the game. But you don't want it to be like that.
But it wasn't a catch.
We caught a break. Listen, that's the discussion. You keep saying it's not a catch. I'm telling you that Sanders would look dead at you and say, I caught that ball. You're bailing him out because of the rule, the application of the rule. He'd tell you he caught that ball. It's no more secure than if I catch a goddamn ball over my head like this and I step out of bounds. This isn't any more secure. I'm just bailed out because I'm out of bounds.
So if you were going down the field, deep pass, right?
Sure.
You jump up in the air, you catch the ball, you get smoked in the air, and you drop the ball. Like Jamar Chase would say he caught that ball, but then he got smoked and dropped it.
Did he get 2 feet on the ground?
No, he doesn't have to have 2 feet on the ground. I'm saying, like, you're just talking catch here, right? I caught the football.
What you're missing, though, is Miles Sanders.
So now you're saying
Miles Sanders has both his feet.
So now there's more elements, right?
Miles Sanders had both his feet on the ground.
Right, so there's more elements added into this.
And I say that to say, like, legislate, like, why does the guy, if it's secure, why did we add the football move? We added the football move rule because we wanted to let ourselves off the hook with Dez Bryant. Like, why are we? It shouldn't still be a thing. Like,
what's the call if? Okay, let's add this in. What's the call if you catch the ball deep in the air? Like, I'm going to go back to my example with Jamar Chase. He catches the ball, hits the ground, simultaneously gets smoked. Same thing, right?
Sure.
Not a fumble, or because they would consider that incomplete because he didn't do exactly what we talked about again.
Do you get the sense that if somebody's down, when you're down, you're just down?
Yes.
Okay, so back to Kim's question because it's where it started. The completion of the catch. Why is it if I go out of bounds, the play is over? Right? This is just theory. Like, chalk me off like 888-638-48. So you catch a ball, your feet are in bounds, you're down, you hit the ground and you drop the ball. Right? You don't complete the catch. You get shoved and the ball comes out. Once I'm out of bounds, shouldn't I be out of bounds?
I think so.
So why was Devontae Smith not a catch? Because he bobbled it on the way to the ground, even though he had it in the air before he went to the ground. Because you know what really aggravates me is when it's not a fumble, when a guy can reach over the goal line and still have the ball knocked out and the play isn't dead. Play hasn't been blown dead. They'll go to replay him. They'll say he broke the plane of the end zone. It just seems like it's a lot of. I just don't know what makes it. What makes the football move different along the sidelines and on the goal line that doesn't make it applicable in the field of play?
Do these guys ever get the?
I know what you're saying. I know what the question you're asking is.
That's what I want to know. Because, and I think it would be a lot less. It'd be a lot less aggravating if we had that explained.
Do these guys ever get the benefit of the doubt on possession of the ball? And the reason why I ask that is because you see these circus-like catches. I mean, Kelsey had one last night over the middle of the field.
Oh, the one between it. Yeah,
was, you know, and
that's such a hard catch. It reminded me of Tony's punt. Like, crazy. Those are such hard catches. If Shane, if you were standing in front of those double doors, I used to do this with Caleb all the time, and I would have him walk towards me, and I would throw him balls below his knees and just see if he could catch those without either kneeing it or hitting it with his shin or being able to bend. Those are
and you know
those are ridiculous.
These guys are so strong. I mean, they can catch it with
that was
one
a hand.
hand.
That was a hands catch.
You know,
Did that look secure to you? No, but when he got hit and went to the ground, it didn't hit the ground, so therefore it was a catch.
I've got good news for you, DB. You want to hear the good news?
What's that?
You can ask Cynthia Freeland all your questions.
No, I mean, she does not want to be in the rules committee, but I'm going to ask her a lot of questions.
Now, we have been talking about some heavy topics today regarding the Super Bowl, and, you know, it's the perfect time to welcome in our next guest. It's Cynthia Freeland. We had her on, gosh, what was this, about a week and a half ago, analytics expert for NFL Network, and she was so great we had to bring her back again. Cynthia, good morning. What's up?
The listeners are like, oh, my gosh.
Good morning.
It's good to be well-liked, Cynthia. Good morning. We wouldn't know.
You guys having me
exactly. We would not know. Hey, how were all of the Super Bowl festivities for you? I know you were out in Phoenix.
You know, it was great. Phoenix is a wonderful host city. I'm actually still here. My voice sounds terrible because it was a very loud event, but you know, it's a little dry here too. I'm gonna blame it on that.
Cynthia, let me, because we haven't gotten to this yet, but what is the pushback on the playing conditions? I know the players are furious, but did you hear much real time being so close to it as you were?
You know, it was difficult because the only thing I really heard, the man, like, he's known as like the sod father. He like really was in charge of the sod for like the past, I don't even know how many years. He was explaining it, and part of it had to do with like a lot of the, I mean, okay, I'm butchering this. I'm not a sod person. It's not my thing, but I do know that he said something about like the way that a tarp on the half, I don't know, whatever. So I didn't hear much of it, truly didn't hear much of it real time, except for the fact that, you know, someone explained it to me once you started to hear it on the broadcast.
Not to be confused with Todd Father, Todd Frazier, the Sod Father.
The Sod Father. That is fantastic.
Sod Father.
I love it.
Big fan. Hey, let's talk about Mr. MVP, Patrick Mahomes, because he already has the accolades to back up Hall of Fame candidacy in just 5 years of starts. I mean, has there ever been a quarterback this early in their career that's done what he's done when it comes to Super Bowl wins, MVPs in both regular and postseason, 5 AFC championship games, and 3 Super Bowl appearances? Like, does anybody match that?
No, but at the same time, a lot of people haven't been asked to match that. Remember, Patrick only sat for, you know, all but one game his rookie year. Most of the time, these guys are being asked to start on terrible teams very quickly. So, you know, Patrick is a absolute, like, I mean, look, no more Tom Brady, so I think it's okay to say, like, he's, to me, it's very hard. It would be very hard to argue that anyone is better than Patrick, who's still currently playing.
Right.
So, you know, like, no, I haven't seen anything like it. But I will say, we are asking people to do different things than they did in the past.
So, Andrew, Cynthia, it's interesting because I'm looking at what I'm talking about with Mahomes and Hurts in a loss is being really validated in terms of his play. It's rare that the quarterback that didn't win the game is almost getting as much accolades as the guy that did. Do you remember a time like that where we were so quick to validate Hurts' performance or the opposing quarterback's performance?
Well, I think Joe Burrow last year, we were saying things of similar ilk, right? Like, Joe Burrow is absolutely great, but I think it's more, I actually think people were worried because ahead of the game, you heard a lot of analysis saying, like, you know, Jalen Hurts could end up, you know, if he doesn't play well or something, he could end up just being that guy who started against Patrick Mahomes in that one Super Bowl, right? And I think people were more surprised that kind of the transition that he made, this like huge leap in everything from deep passing to his accuracy to all these different, like, understanding blitz versus, you know, when he's seeing man and zone coverages and sort of different blitz packages that are, you know, exotics, not necessarily from, you know, the Chiefs, but in general this season. Like, I think people are just in awe of the step forward he took this season. And I think they're just kind of respond. I mean, it felt like, I mean, Jalen Hurts didn't lose that game. You know what I mean? Like that. And in fact, like, that game was so back and forth. It was not like Jalen Hurts went out there and put up a stinker.
Cynthia, a lot of feelings have come out on the show this morning, and it's been centered around officiating for the most part, which, you know, kind of just happens now because Twitter and other forms of social media can be this sort of cesspool for attacking NFL officials or sharing feelings or blaming this, that, or the other. You know, we saw, is it a catch? Is it not a catch? We saw, is it a hold? Is it not a hold? But I want to ask you this. What do you think's the bigger call? Was it Wilson's PI last year on Cup, or was it Bradbury's hold on Juju?
One was a lot easier than the other.
I mean, I'm going to be honest with you. I'm not going to ever pretend that I know what a catch is or that I know what PI is. Like, the people who do officiating stuff, like, that's a hard job. So to be honest with you, you know, look, I think the bigger call, oh man, that's a great question. I'm going to go with last year just because it felt like that one changed the cadence just like a lot more, but I don't know. That they're 6 of one, half a dozen of another, really.
So, because I'm looking at all the efficiency metrics, the quarterback play, the 27 of 38 for Hurts, the 3 rushing touchdowns. Mahomes rushes for over 7 a carry, only 6 incompletions. When you look at the efficiency in which the quarterbacks played with sans Hurts fumbles, doesn't it seem disingenuous to make it about a call? It feels like it feels that way.
Here's the thing. The reality is calls go both ways. Now, obviously, you don't want anything to be decided by what feels like I don't know. I guess, like, I go with what the teams tell their players, which, like, you have to just let it go.
Yeah.
Like, we can fight about it later. We can fight all you want. It's actually not going to change anything. So, like, play it as it is, right? Like, there's no intentional, no one's like, it's, you know, people feel like it's very personal. It's not. They're humans too to make the call. So, like, the reality is, you know, look, like, there are going to be some that are right, some that are wrong. And the Eagles were the beneficiary of, not that they needed against the 49ers, but they were the beneficiary of kind of a missed call in the last game. That Devontae Smith catch, I say that with air quotes, was not a catch. So, you know, it goes both ways. So over the long run, it will go both ways. It just, in the moment, it feels not great.
Yeah, speaking of, we'll continue the conversation on feelings here. Travis Kelce had some feelings about people saying that the Chiefs weren't up to par this year and couldn't get to the Super Bowl, which, you know, it's kind of true, kind of not. I mean, if you looked at, like, the actual odds, they were like 3rd favorite to win to start the year. So there were some people that were like, no, the Chiefs are still the Chiefs because they have Mahomes, Kelce, Andy Reid, etc. But they were also a team that was kind of in reset mode after losing Tyreek Hill and putting some young guys on the defense. But aside from all of that, they win the Super Bowl this year. They'll probably be the odds-on favorite to win next year, too, to open the season. But, Cynthia, what did they establish as an organization under now Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes in regards to the dynasty conversation? Like, what do the Chiefs do that all other great dynasties do?
You know, they figure out a way to have their quarterback, who's the best in the game, create, like, he has a huge contract, obviously, but the way that it's structured allows them to still pay other players. And I understand that the cap went up, so it sounds crazy to say something like that. But the reality is, you know, when you restock the shelves like you do when you trade Tyreek Hill away, and then, you know, last night, rookies made a big difference. Sky Moore got a touchdown, right? So it's not like you're, you know, playing with, you know, when you have Patrick Mahomes and you have Travis Kelce and you have a number of pieces along that O-line and you have Chris Jones, like, you have a really nice foundation, and they create the right pieces of depth. They create the right numbers when it comes to, you know, defensive backs, things like that. Like, the strategy fits the type of personnel that they have on the team, and they do that very masterfully. And Andy Reid, like, who you have to hand it to him. Like, I mean, look, like, he draws up the right plays at the right time, and he gets his guys in position to win.
Cynthia, let me ask you something, because you mentioned cap space and quarterbacks, and I'm just going to go back to the original format with the playoffs. And Herbert obviously is going to get the big extension and rookie contract for this calendar year. Lamar Jackson was in limbo, didn't start versus the Ravens. Trevor Lawrence, rookie deal. Joe Burrow, rookie deal. You know, Allen's going to get the monster deal. Tua didn't play, rookie deal. Jones had the rookie deal. Kirk Cousins got paid. Dak Prescott got paid. Tom Brady got paid. Geno Smith sounds like will get paid. 49ers, kind of the X factor, but with a rookie quarterback combo. Plus, they move on from Garoppolo. How does Cynthia Freeland build her team outside of just the, hey, rookie contract, put pieces? Because it's not that easy, but you do have to manage the cap space. What does the data show you on the type of quarterback you need to move on from or keep in your organization?
Well, the thing that's funny is, and I point this out because it's oftentimes teams that sign big quarterback deals often sign big other position deals. And it's really getting those other positions sort of wrong. Like, you have to get quarterback structured right, but you have to get the other things structured right more. It's more important. Like when you talk about Dak, think about contracts like Zeke Elliott, who didn't have the production to match the contract that they're paying him for. Look at the Saints, that Michael Thomas contract, even though they restructured it, that hampers them all of the time. And he's not even on the field, right? So the reality is that we can blame it only on the quarterback or the quarterback contract, but really it's the fact that, like, you can't get yourself in a jam. You have to be flexible at a lot of positions, and you can't overpay for positions or players that aren't going to at least help you, enough. Meaning, like, Zeke was healthy. Like, Michael Thomas, that's another story. He's been, not playing. But, like, the reality is like, you have to have this nice balance of enough of the guys that are the dudes, and then you have to have enough of the depth to round it out, because injuries do happen.
Okay, so Cynthia, when do you think? When would you? How many years, roughly, just generally speaking, if you're the GM, would you move on from a quarterback on a rookie deal to know that this isn't going to be your guy? New York
Jets,
I
knew it wasn't going to be my.
I'm thinking of Tua. Yeah. I'm thinking of Zach Wilson. Like, some of these franchises are going to have to make some tough decisions.
I think you move on from the guys who that do not allow you to execute to the highest level. Meaning, for example, like, you didn't bring it up, but if Lamar Jackson if the coaches and what goes on in that building, if that doesn't feel like a fit anymore, obviously that's a little bit different situation. They can franchise him, et cetera. But, like, then they should figure it out, right? Like, meaning move on or do whatever, like, fix it, whatever. But the reality is it's very hard to find a good quarterback. They aren't replaceable. The guys, it's not like, the reason that they can command such big salaries is because they're a very scarce resource. So the reality is no, you have to figure it out, but you have to also figure it out with all the things that are, like, being mindful of what's the actual scenario you're in, right? Like, are there a dearth of wide receivers you could go out and restock the shelves with? Are there great linemen available in free agency or at the draft, like the kids in the draft that you're conceivably able to put on your team? Are they going to be able to do the things that the team needs? That's where being a GM is tricky, because it's a recipe. It's a little bit more salt, then a little bit more sugar, then a little bit more fat, then a little bit more acid. It's not, this one thing and poof, it's, the whole thing's made.
Well, speaking of young quarterbacks and whether, like, that's the option, or maybe if it's hitting free agency and grabbing a veteran quarterback, I was looking at your mock draft that you released a couple of days ago, and you have the Texans taking Will Anderson Jr., and the reason for that is you have them solving the problem of quarterback in free agency, which I think that's, like, the only draft where I've seen somebody say, hey, we're going to take a player and then worry about the quarterback in free agency. Why would you go that route?
Well, if you look at the models that we've seen from, like, Robert Saleh, for example, who actually, ironically, same sort of path as DeMeco Ryans, meaning DC at the Niners and then to head coach. Build with what you are strong with. When you have, the Texans have a lot of needs to fill. So when you have to figure out a lot of positions, build with what you know. Like, my ideal, like, I'm sort of tongue in cheek hinting at the fact that perhaps they get a guy like Jimmy Garoppolo, who, the head coach has experience with. You don't necessarily need to turn the entire organization around in one season. Figure it out from the fundamentals out. And if DeMeco Ryans, who has a really, really ethically smart defensive mind. If he can get pieces like Will Anderson, put them in the formula now and early, and solve with a free agent quarterback, of which we'll probably see a lot of movement this season, then you're actually sitting much prettier and able to develop in a much stronger way than if you went out and reached for a quarterback. I don't know exactly, like his OC, I'm somewhat familiar with. I love their quarterbacks coach, Gerard Johnson, but none of them have ever, quote unquote, picked a quarterback before. So it's one thing to work with it, or having been a former quarterback. It's another thing to pick a franchise quarterback. So the reality is play to your strengths, be smart about it, and build with the fundamentals. And look what happened for the Jets. You mentioned Zach Wilson as being one of those quarterbacks we don't know about. Well, their defense is certainly not something we don't know about. Their defense was awesome.
Gosh, you sound just like DeMeco Ryan. I'm a big DeMeco Ryans guy, even though I'm not a Niners fan. I just like how he approaches the game. And he talked about, this was last week, making sure that the pieces are right around the quarterback to take pressure off of the quarterback when you're looking at guys in the draft. And I wonder, Cynthia, especially listening to you again this morning and following your mock draft, are we moving that way where more people think like you two? Because I still see a ton of quarterbacks, and I mean, props to you in your draft, because I don't think you have a quarterback going before 7.
She doesn't.
I don't.
where they don't panic for a quarterback, they try to get the other pieces right.
I mean, I feel like if Andy Reid were somehow drafting in like the first 2 picks, which obviously he isn't, then maybe it would be different, because this is a person who we've seen develop quarterbacks very quickly and time again, right? But I don't know. They won't move that way. Like I went to college with the GM of the Bears, right? So I told him, I was like, you should tell everyone that you want to trade your quarterback, and you want to like tell Justin, like, okay, listen, you're going to hear some weird stuff, but I'm just trying to get you the most draft haul ever. And I'm going to tell everyone that we're going to take a quarterback so that people will trade up. Right. Like, I'm like, just gamesmanship it. I'm like, just tell everyone that. Be like, I'm going to get you a pass rusher. I'm going to get you maybe even an O-lineman. Like, come on. Like, you're on board for this, right? But the reality is like, it's just not how, they're just, like I said, it's a scarce resource, and getting it right is so important. So people are going to take as many shots as possible to do that.
As I think about the Bears, because that's my team, Cynthia, you hit it at home for me. Because of all of that stuff coming out with, hey, Justin Fields is our guy, and the idea is, okay, well, they're not going to take a quarterback, so like, is it really worth trading up for 1 when I could maybe, hey, trade up for 2 instead and try to give Houston more stuff, or 3 with Arizona and so forth down the list? Like, do you think that was a strong play by the Bears just to say like, hey, we're going to take our guy regardless? Or do you think it's even going to matter come draft day? Because if people want their guy, they're going to trade up for their guy.
Great question. I think that, look, they're going to trade up for their guy. I do believe at the end of the day, it's probably better for like, Justin Fields' mental health. If you say like, it just in general to seem like we're throwing our weight behind someone. But again, someone will trade up. They just maybe lost themselves as a target. You know what I mean? Like, it's a great question, but long story short, I think that they'll end up being okay. It'll end up being, playing out just fine anyways.
Cynthia, you're super data driven. So is there a position where you just don't believe should be taken above a certain spot? Like, some people think, gosh, you can't take a wide receiver 1, or a quarter, or a running back has to be blank before he goes in the top blank. Do you have some general rules of thumb that you think are best practice for draft slots?
Yeah, know thyself. If you're not a team that it's true, if you're not a team that really uses a linebacker that drops into coverage, then don't draft one. Like know thyself. The value doesn't come from, I would never be so short-sighted as to say, you should never take a running back in the first round, right? Like, I have the Cowboys taking a running back in the first round. I think because they won't be able to, I don't believe they'll be able to keep
Robinson, right? If I remember right?
Exactly.
Okay.
Bijan Robinson, I think, is a very valuable asset. And if you're not going to pay a second contract to Tony Pollard, then that's a very valuable asset and something that you will use. You've already paid Zeke too much. Okay, don't compound the problem by making it worse with adding more. So the reality is know thyself and know thy game plan. If you want to execute, an offense with a bunch of, designed quarterback runs, you need the offensive line that does that. So maybe a guard does make sense for you, right? Like, I don't care. You have to know yourself. Getting it right, meaning that it fits and they contribute to your team right away, is incredibly important. Obviously, you need to build from your priorities. Of course, if your team doesn't have a quarterback, left tackle, pass rusher, corner, and wide receiver, then it doesn't make sense to be like, we're going to start with a running back, right? But build the way that you anticipate and expect to use it, keeping a mindfulness on the scarcity of the position.
Quickly here, because we only have about a minute 28. Cynthia, you mentioned Bijan Robinson, and the last couple of mock drafts that I looked at, I mean, you have him going to Dallas. I've seen him going to Philly, and kind of weird landing spots because of the running back room there. Wouldn't you want the proven versus unproven, or is he just that special of a talent that you're willing to take the risk?
I think that when it comes to top end running backs, those are the ones you don't want to overpay in a second contract. So if you have maybe you don't have that top end running back on the rookie deal, or whatever it is, that's where that rookie deal is probably smarter. If someone has just absolutely overperformed and now they're going to command too much money in the marketplace, then perhaps you take a guy like Bijan Robinson, who forecasts to be amongst the guys who get the next big contract.
Well, we really appreciate you joining the show this morning. Thanks so much. We know you were busy. We know you had a long night last night, but you knocked it out of the park. And since we're transitioning to baseball now, I can use that term.
Thank you so much for having me. Always a pleasure.
That's Cynthia Freeland, C Freeland on Twitter, analytics expert for NFL Network. We'll have her on again, probably closer to the NFL draft, maybe even during the combine. Who knows? But when we come back, I want to play Take It or Leave It, and then I want to talk a little baseball. So that's how we'll wrap up and end the show. Stick around. It's Coffee and Cream here on Hail Varsity Radio.
Day one of what is to come. 3 hours, 7 to 10. Live local radio. Trying to do it better than anyone else because we just want to be in cahoots with one of our partners. That would be Dingman's, who tries to do it better than anyone else.
Well, they figure things out. I can't even figure this thing out that you gave
I
me.
will see them shortly as I have 2 new tires put on
Goodyear?
My vehicle. Whatever comes on that stupid vehicle out there
that costs a ton of money.
Seems to be a nail magnet. But yeah, fantastic customer service and timely too. Got me right in on time, walked me through. I saw my truck on the, I don't know, it's like up off the ground, whatever they put that thing on. And
the lift?
He's like, hey, yeah, sure. That's a good word for it. Like, we're going to tear these tires apart and see what's going on. And comes back out and he shows me a picture of not just 1 nail, but 2. So,
which is crazy that it only was a slow leak for you.
Yeah. So one is like on the inner wall and it's in the middle of the tire between the treads. So it's in a quote unquote good spot. But then we got into this discussion over like the speeds per second and the rotation of new tires on all-wheel drive and 4-wheel drive versus not having new tires on just the front. Too, and like the timing speed, and I was like, hey, listen, it's at least.
Are you just nodding your head at this point? Are you?
It's so over my pay grade, but I get it. Shane told me about this one time between having a tire that was worn down and a tire that's new,
right?
The Revolutions, but with my suspension, I'm doing both at the same time, but my front tires will be significantly worse than my back tires. So he was just telling me about. Is it timing, speed? Whatever it is, that can be you two. Dingman's so good at what they do. And they're busy, so make sure you give them a call because there was a line of vehicles. And how about Darcy stopping in? She's like, yeah, I'm kind of a stalker because I listened to the show, so I knew you had an appointment. I just wanted to make sure that it went well. And
awesome.
I was like, that is
awesome.
Super.
I wouldn't even call that stalker. I would just call that.
That's what she's.
Yeah, I know, but that's what I'm
just
saying.
Cool.
Right,
you know what I mean? Like, so yeah, that can definitely be you two. 4 great locations, family owned and operated, and
taking family
and taking care of the community. That's kind of my baby.
So are you like driving through like a construction area at all?
I was thinking the same thing when he said the nails just pop up in my tire.
Listen, you guys. So Shane, this is how many tires in the past 9 months?
I don't know. I mean, I've known you for 10 years, and there's got to be at least 10 tires.
Dude, I've had a problem with nails and tires too.
So this will be my 4 and 5 in the last 9 months.
Wild.
5 tires in the last 9 months.
Yeah.
I'm so unfortunate. I got a wheel weight stuck in my tire. A wheel weight.
Have they been on different tires?
Opposed to a fake weight?
Shane, it has been the back right and the back left, but mostly the back left. So you asked me about my travel habits. The only thing that I can remember doing every day, is going from 108th and Harrison to 108th and Center, taking a right on Center, going to 90th Street, taking a left on 90th Street, and going to West Side. That's outside of coming here.
Mm-hmm.
That's the only thing that I do every day. Now, Center Street along 96 to 90th is a debacle. But
you would think with technology the way it is today, that as soon as you hit the nail that year, they would just tell you.
Yeah, but it's like the story of my life. It's a slow death, man.
Dude, I get it. I took my car somewhere in Sioux City one time for a nail in my tire, got the car back, drove it, said low air in another tire. So I went to Casey's to fill it up. There was a nail in the tire. It got a nail in the shop.
I just found out that Casey's has free air.
Yeah.
It's kind of off to the side.
Just found out? You know who else does? Come and Go.
Well, I knew because when I lived off of North or Fort,
QT, I think does.
I would go to the one on 129th and Fort sometimes, but I didn't. And the Casey's one is kind of off.
Mm-hmm.
The beaten parking spot,
and it's every Casey's is
coffee
different.
Shop.
Everyone is different. It could either be on the side, it could be like next to the actual building, it could be like in a random parking spot. Yeah, it's all over the place.
And I've been going to Casey's because Zoe has a thing now for their cinnamon shiny donuts, which is just code for cinnamon glazed.
Yum.
Yeah. So Zoe would definitely be Team Honey Bun. Speak of the devil. Did we just speak her name into existence?
No way. Unbelievable.
We just spoke her name. Is this because you felt bad for me? She is sensational.
My
as
goodness.
Darcy
That's fantastic.
Brings us cookies.
Darcy, thank you.
See,
this is why we love Dingman's.
Well, I do have to
here.
say, she let me off the hook slow because when the gentleman came back from the back, Darcy was just getting ready to leave, and she goes, I said, so hey, I said, hey, how's the vehicle? And he says, oh, I got a couple things. And I go, bad news first. And she goes, well, on that note, I'll see you later.
On that note, I'll bring cookies on Monday.
Today, 11:30. Yeah. So I'm very
we appreciate you.
I'm very discouraged, but I'm very happy. But thank you for the cookies.
Yeah. I'm taking one too. I know I don't deserve it, but I'm taking one.
No, I'll share.
In fact, yeah, he's not a sweet guy.
Oh,
this was planned,
yes.
So I could have the full batch of cookies.
Well, take care of Shane. He wants to come from back there so bad.
I know.
Good. Thank you.
Thank you, Darcy.
Yeah. So on the bad, I know that was weird.
What a thing. That was awesome.
Spoken into existence. Want some cookies?
Shane, let's play Take It or Leave It. We got about half of a segment left after talking about Dingman's and tires and cars and
which way do I drive every day?
Yeah, exactly. Oh. Shane, kick us off.
Take it or leave it. Travis Kelce will be the last tight end to 10,000 yards in this century.
78 years left. I'll leave it.
I'm gonna leave it
because tight ends, like, they kind of come from anywhere.
I'm gonna.
And if you pair the right tight end, or if you just pair a really good tight end with a great quarterback, things like this can happen.
I'll leave it.
I'm gonna leave it.
Take it or leave it. Creighton will be a 4 seed or better come March Madness.
I feel like we had this like months ago, and we were like, "Ooh, it's got to be a 4 seed, right?" Because Creighton was like on that high
4 seed or higher.
I'll take it.
I'll take it.
I think in the most recent one, we're a 6, but that was before the UConn win.
I'm lofty prediction. I think they run the table
and win the Big East championship and become a 3?
They'll be a 4-seed or better. I'm taking that, Shane.
Okay. Take it or leave it.
Creighton. They won a game in which Kaluma didn't make a shot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was the ugliest game of basketball I've ever watched.
I'm taking it.
4-seed or better.
Take it or leave it. Dylan Raiola ends up at Nebraska.
Ooh, no, you didn't.
Had this conversation a lot last week. We talked to Mitch Sherman. We talked to Sam McEwen. A lot of people said yes. I will. I'm going to leave it. I'm going to say that he is going to end up at a contender school right now. And if he changes his mind later, he has that option.
Oh, gosh. I don't feel great about it, but today I'm going to leave it.
Ask me again in 3 weeks.
Okay, Kevin Suits.
Oh, I do like Kevin.
I do too. I love Kevin. Go ahead, Shaner.
Take it or leave it. The Eagles will be back in the Super Bowl next year. I'll take that.
I actually will take it too. I think they are well put together, and I don't think their division's as difficult as people think.
I'm going to leave it.
They got a great opportunity. Like
have
good
to keep
percentage
Jalen
of
Hurts healthy. The NFC East is on the come to begin with. I'm going to leave it.
Take it or leave it. Patrick Mahomes will end his career with more Super Bowls than Tom Brady.
Easy. Leave it.
Tom has 6?
7,
7?
Right? Doesn't Brady have 7 Super Bowls? I'm leaving it regardless. Not a chance.
I will also leave it.
But I 6. Brady has 6.
Yeah, I think that
I forgot he has one more than the
Mahomes can get up there though. Like it's not going to be. I don't think he gets 6, but
he still has 4 more to win.
Right, but I could see him getting 4 or 5.
I'm going to keep it at so. If I put the over/under for Super Bowl wins for Patrick Mahomes at 3.5, you're taking the over
at 4.5. Well,
3.5.
I would take the over. Huh? 4.5. I'd be like, that's on the high end of what I'd like to be comfortable with.
He's the deal.
And if you're talking 5 years, he already got 2. What can he do in the next 5 years?
How many more years does Andy Reid have left?
Exactly. Let's talk some baseball. Pitchers and catchers reported today. We'll talk about where we like the teams in spring next. Hey, we are back on the show. Happy to have you with us for a full 3 hours here on Coffee and Cream in the Morning on Hail Varsity Radio, powered by Currency. We are live from the H&H Chevrolet stage at Hail Varsity Club, 590 ESPN Omaha, 1480 ESPN Lincoln. We're live on Twitter, and we're live on YouTube, and we are just enjoying the aftermath of
Enjoy the dance.
Super Bowl Sunday. But there's also a big transition that took place, and I kind of alluded to it at the back end of our talk with Cynthia Freeland. Pitchers and catchers reported today, and I kind of feel like it's gone under the radar. Like those that knew about it said something about it, but I think there's more people out there that didn't know that today was the day because it just kind of came abruptly. Right after the football season ended, it's like, bam, here we are. Even though when we talk NFL, it's kind of a all year round sport per se, right? Because you go straight from Super Bowl Sunday to the combine talk to the draft to, now we're looking at things in the summer and boom, the season's here. But when talking baseball, I don't know. I feel like it kind of flies under the radar a little bit. And
especially locally.
Right. So, I was reading an article over the weekend about some of the biggest question marks from every team going into spring training. And I thought maybe we take a quick gander at it, and then halfway through spring, we
make our predictions,
follow along with the storylines and see. And, one of the big things, we'll start in the AL East. There are a couple of big names to kind of pay attention to here. But, the Orioles had a season last year that nobody predicted they would have. They didn't think that they were shaped up to be a team that goes to the playoffs. They've always been at the bottom of the barrel. And come to find out, they were in playoff contention for the majority of the season. And once we started to get later, it was like, wow, you know, I could see a scenario where the Orioles are in, but then it kind of fell off. And so the magic, whatever the so-called pixie dust that was sprinkled on top of them, they just weren't able to fly just yet. But they did acquire Kyle Gibson and Cole Irvin, which aren't like names I get excited about.
No.
But it does add...
Not like Reyes?
And the Dodgers, on the other hand, add Alex
Reyes. Why are you... You're such a child. Stop giggling at my bad acquisitions. I'm not paying for a raggedy arm.
Well, you did pay for a raggedy outfielder.
It's all right. I'm not.
I'll tell you what, though. Alex Reyes, he was a beast when healthy, but boy, can he not stay healthy? Like, that's his thing. He was one of the best prospects in baseball. I think at one point he was a top of the prospect list, like the MLB top 100, and was supposed to be a huge member of the Cardinals rotation, then gets hurt, ends up coming back, gets hurt again, becomes an all-star closer, gets hurt again. Then all of a sudden the Dodgers are like, hey, we'll take you.
Are you checking out this guy?
We'll take you.
Shannon, are you listening to this guy?
How will you come to our team? Wow. Because I want to make DB sweat as much as when we had Kenley Jansen. Like, you want to come back?
I used to like you. That was cool. About 5 minutes ago, that was fun. I remember those days.
And we instantly went from the AL East to the NL West.
Yeah,
in a matter of
all I mumbled was Reyes, and we get jokey jokes for minutes. That's okay.
Somebody else I think is somebody people should watch is Yoshida over in Boston.
Yeah, we talked about his signing.
He was a big signing for them, but it's like a lot of times when you look at players that come over from Japan, it's like, will the game translate? It did for Shohei Ohtani, but is there another Shohei Ohtani, right? Because it's not like the NHL today where everybody has a Wayne Gretzky. It's like, no, it's Shohei Ohtani we're talking about here. Not just because when you take a guy over from a different league that they can't be something special, but it's almost like, hey, the wishful factor of, ooh, this guy, he shows a little glimpse of this cat in the league already. But you do pair him up with Rafael Devers, so why not, right? When you're talking about decent bats in the order. Aside from those two, do you like what the Yankees are doing?
I do, and I think those arms they're going to have to come around and be top notch. But the team that I like that made moves for the other reasons than what you'd think is the Blue Jays. Because when you think...
Did they do enough?
Well, so here's the thing. You think offense, right? You think offense and they need quality starting arms. But they're so much better defensively now, especially in the outfield. Springer's going to move to right field. Varsho is a top defensive prospect. And you get Kiermaier, who's arguably one of the best defensive outfielders in
elite defense
in baseball. So now all of a sudden they look like,
hey, they look versatile,
like the Twins defensively in the outfield, right?
Hopefully the Twins can stay healthy this year.
So I kind of like what they've done defensively. Now they need a stopper. Like who's the frontline guy that when you trot him out there can match up against everybody else's number one? They kind of piecemeal this thing together with their staff, but I like what the Blue Jays have done surprisingly on the defensive side of what they want to do with that lineup.
Looking at the AL Central, and I think
Varsho, they can pick it in the outfield.
Yes.
And now Springer gets to play right field.
That is true. We'll probably keep this with AL today. Maybe we'll go NL tomorrow. But looking at the White Sox, that's a team that I think everybody's like, because even last year it was, hey, the White Sox are like my favorite to come out of the AL Central. And it just never like got put together. And, you know, with Liam Hendricks having what he's dealing with right now, you have Clevenger who you sign, and then all of a sudden he has domestic violence baggage following him now. And so the starter they got is now like they're back at square one, right? Are the White Sox a team that can put it all together? They're a young team, But
I think you're setting me up. I do.
You think they can put it all together?
You haven't worked with me long enough to know that one team that I constantly always question is the Chicago
White Sox.
Because it's just something about them. Every year for 4 years, I keep hearing that this is the year. And I know, listen, won their division. I'm not poo-pooing the regular season accomplishments. I'm not. But last year, as La Russa was the butt of all the jokes and this, that, and the other, and when's he going to be out of there? And they had a hard time staying healthy, especially early. But the team that I like, shame on me, and Brian Christopherson is going to laugh. And I'm sorry, Mike Schaefer, because it's not, the Detroit Guardians. The Guardians.
It's not the Detroit Tigers.
Oh,
they should have had a better year. The Tigers should have had a better year last year than they did. That was my team that was on the come.
I'm telling you,
you can poo-poo that division all you want.
And I think for 2 years in a row, when we do our predictions after spring training, I'll give you the most the wins above the predictions and wins below. Like we'll do each of the divisions.
Oh, absolutely.
I've been pretty good at
that.
Have
you?
Yes.
Nick Maton.
So the last 2 years, I stayed in the same division because I know it the best. But I took wins 2 years ago with the Giants when they had an unbelievable year, and I think it was like 62.5. And last year I took the D-backs, and I think they were at 56.
What'd you call me? Oh, you said D-backs.
But I'm going with the Twins.
Hey,
I like what they've been able to do. Michael Taylor. I know you're shrugging, right? But you got Michael Taylor coming over, who's going to help. Gallo's a good defensive right fielder. Hopefully
he'll strike out a ton.
Hopefully he can hit the ball at some point. But he won't have. There's not a ton of pressure in Minnesota.
No, and Maeda's comoming back.
Yeah,
Kenta's good too.
So I kind of like.
And they have Alex Kirilloff. He's a good prospect.
Yeah, I kind of like.
Polanco's low-key fire.
Buxton goes along with Kepler. Mm-hmm. I kind of like what the Twins have done. Again, front line. Who's my hammer?
I kind of like the local team too.
Oh,
I think they have a lot of question marks, but the new staff, all they have to do is come in and fix the Royals' pitching problems.
I have a question.
Hit it.
What are they going to do with Salvi?
You got to keep moving with him. Like you ride.
Where's he been in the Where's he been in the off season?
I know. I mean, like I said, he tripped over his luggage, man. It's cool.
He said, "I know. I don't know. We get a healthy Trout in Los Angeles to play with.
I hope so. That's my guy.
Can I ask you about one other thing real quick? Because I know we're not going to do the NL today. Were you like, where is all this money coming from when the Padres re-upped on you, Darvish?
Yep. It's amazing, dude. When you don't have a salary cap in baseball, all of a sudden,
$300 million payroll and just be eating that luxury tax.
Yep.
Not really a luxury
tax. Have the owner be like, I'll give you
the threshold, or you'll just keep paying other teams in the league.
Correct. Correct.
Hey, well, the team's like, spin your brains out. How much is that? Another 5-6 mil in the coffers? Yeah, we'll take it.
Mm-hmm.
But how, was it 108? What was the number
for you?
It was 108, something like that.
It was insane. And Darvish isn't young. Like, let's remember that. He's 36 years old, and he got a 6-year extension worth
108, maybe.
Oh goodness, you're gonna make me watch a video here.
No, I'm not, because I think we should be able to just pull it up. But I thought I saw 108, and it may be backloaded. Baseball contracts.
108. You're right. Why would I even doubt you though? I mean, you're always on top of your numbers.
I don't know why I remember that. But anyway, I'm just thinking, how? So then I wanted to read the contract because I'm like, they're going to sign him through his 40s. It's got to be backloaded, doesn't it?
Yeah. And we can dig it up. We could find that information.
They just keep spending money.
They're ready to win. They're ready to win. And they're not afraid to spend to win.
Yeah. Well, we should do some predictions on where Tatis Jr. ends up.
St. Louis.
Do you want him?
Yeah. Oh, God, yeah. You kidding me? Give me Mr. Steroids. I don't care.
Yeah.
That guy is a stud. Hey, we have lots more to get to tomorrow, but thanks for joining us today for these 3 hours. We will see you then.